Cheating millionaire husband regrets divorce, but his poor wife has already moved on. Bianca Moretti once believed marriage to a self-made millionaire was the ultimate dream, a whirlwind romance steeped in promise and possibility. Armand Fontaine dazzled her with lavish gifts, private jet escapades, and whispered declarations of eternal devotion. Yet beneath the glitz of penthouse parties and black-tie galas, their fairy tale frayed. Armand, obsessed with power and temptation, veered into a reckless affair, discarding the woman who'd stood by him. Only after the ink dried on their divorce did regret strike him like a thunderbolt. But by then, Bianca had discovered her own strength and forged a new destiny without him. What followed would shock them both. Bianca Moretti first met Armand Fontaine at a fund-raising banquet in Milan. She was fresh out of graduate school, guiding VIP guests through an art exhibit featuring talented young sculptors. Armand, then 33, had soared into the public eye after a string of savvy investments in biotech startups. Commanding in his presence, Armand exuded an air of easy confidence that drew all attention in the glittering room. When their paths intersected, his sharp smile, smouldering gaze made her heart skip a beat. Within hours, he coaxed her into a waltz around the expansive ballroom. By night's end, their connection felt electric, as though destiny itself had orchestrated their meeting. Armand lingered in Milan for a week longer than planned, whisking Bianca off on candlelit dinners among the city's canals. She, raised in a modest household with a fiercely supportive mother, found herself dazzled by the extravagance, but more so by Armand's genuine curiosity about her life. He asked about her passion for art history, her quiet desire to one day establish a traveling gallery for emerging artists. In those initial days, he appeared both gentle and solicitous, weaving an impression that he valued her beyond mere arm candy status. Over months, they built a whirlwind romance, bridging continents. Armand introduced her to his business associates in Geneva, then flew her to lavish receptions in Monaco. He seemed unstoppable, riding wave after wave of financial success, capturing headlines for philanthropic donations. Meanwhile, Bianca straddled awe and mild unease at how quickly her life changed. She accepted his proposal before the year ended, a ring with a diamond so large it made her mother gasp. Their wedding in the Tuscan hills was the stuff of fairy tales, pastel blossoms, string quartets, a star-studded guest list. The press dubbed them the unstoppable Fontaine couple, Armand for his unstoppable deal-making, Bianca for her quiet brilliance that anchored him. And for a while, the glow of newlywed life felt perfect. They traveled, hosted charity galas, and spent occasional weekends in the French Riviera. Bianca pressed forward with her dream to promote young artists. With Armand's promise of backing, he spared no expense on their luxurious penthouse in London, replete with custom art pieces adorning every corridor. Still, faint warnings tugged at her mind. Armand's phone buzzed incessantly with messages from unknown contacts. He spent late nights locked in hushed calls. At a Christmas party, she once glimpsed him chatting closely with an elegant woman, Marianne Dubois, rumored to be a financial strategist. He brushed it off as business. Wanting to trust her husband, Bianca quieted her anxieties. She reasoned that a man juggling so many ventures might appear elusive. Unaware of the heartbreak that loomed, she let love overshadow caution. And so, in the breathless excitement of a fairy tale marriage, the seeds of future turmoil lay quietly embedded, waiting for betrayal to unleash them in full force. A year into their marriage, Bianca's life brimmed with charitable receptions and international travel. Armand's wealth flourished even further. He ventured into renewable energy startups, minted alliances with emerging tech moguls, and soared on magazine covers, branding him a modern Renaissance man. Bianca found herself juggling two roles, supportive partner in the public eye, and budding advocate for underappreciated artists behind the scenes. Yet subtle signs disturbed her serenity. Armand's schedule grew hectic beyond reason. Months would slip by where they rarely shared an uninterrupted dinner. He hopped from Manhattan boardrooms to Berlin summits, frequently accompanied by colleagues Bianca hardly knew. At social events, she'd discover glimpses of tension, like hushed arguments between him and his CFO, or an unnamed tension in his voice whenever he referenced a certain phone call. She told herself it was mere stress. A man operating so many business fronts had to remain half lost in a haze of deals and deadlines, right? During an art expo in Florence, Bianca received a text from a mutual friend, Cassie Scott, who'd once been her dorm mate. Saw Armand last night in Paris with some woman. They looked quite close. Are you in Paris too? Alarm rippled through Bianca. She was in Florence, and she'd believed Armand was in Geneva for a finance panel. She confronted him gently after returning home. He dismissed it with an exasperated sigh. I was in transit, had to meet with a sponsor. Cassie obviously saw me with a potential investor. Nothing more. The flicker of annoyance in his eyes made her shrink back. He pressed a quick kiss to her forehead, calling her questions paranoia. Her misgivings flared, but again she chose to trust the man who had once devoted every breath to courting her. She hated feeling suspicious. Didn't love require faith? Around that time, a new rumor emerged that Armand had formed a special partnership with an exclusive men's club in London, where discreet deals and whispered alliances took shape. Bianca had never been invited to one of those gatherings, apparently gentlemen only. Cassie discreetly warned that Armand was rumored to entertain potential female clients in private chambers. Bianca, heart pounding, confronted him again. He brushed it off with a half laugh, half snort, accusing Cassie of stirring jealousy. He even turned the tables, reminding Bianca how her best friend once tried to crash a private function. Don't let her sabotage us, he insisted. Exhausted by the swirl of rumors, Bianca resolved to ignore them. She told herself these tales might be born of envy. Armand's success attracted cynics. When he arrived home, some nights reeking of champagne, she tried to swallow her fears. Focusing on small, tender gestures he still offered like a gift, from her favorite boutique or a whispered apology for being preoccupied. But with each half-truth that she accepted, the foundation of her trust eroded. She denied the creeping possibility that Armand's affection might be drifting to another woman. The warnings multiplied, yet she clung to love's illusions, until the day that illusions shattered in a single, irrevocable moment. Bianca's heart hammered in her chest as she unlocked the penthouse door. She'd returned early from a short trip to Brussels, where she'd met with patrons for her traveling gallery project. She expected to find Armand away. He'd told her he was flying to Stockholm for a potential venture. Instead, upon entering, she sensed something off, a faint scent of exotic perfume drifting through the living area, the hush that suggested someone else was inside. She followed the trail to their master bedroom. The door stood ajar. Through the gap, she caught sight of Armand's silhouette entwined with a woman's form, lips locked in a fervent kiss. The woman's face was angled away, but the sight alone twisted Bianca's stomach into knots of shock and heartbreak. Her mind screamed, "This can't be real." Her legs wobbled, a swirl of betrayal crashing over her. Unaware of her presence, they lingered in that intimate embrace. Bianca's voice caught in her throat, fury and agony colliding. At last, she managed a strangled cry, "Armand!" The pair sprang apart. The woman spun around, none other than Marianne Dubois, the so-called financial strategist whom Bianca had glimpsed months earlier. Marianne's eyes flashed with a mix of guilt and brazen confidence. Armand, hair mussed, shirt half undone, stepped forward, arms raising in a pathetic attempt at damage control. "Bianca, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered, voice trembling. Bianca's eyes brimmed with tears, but she forced her tone to remain steady. "No, it's exactly what it looks like." Her gaze shifted from Armand to Marianne, who offered a mocking tilt of her lip. "So all those rumors, all your late nights, you've been lying to me," she spat each word, bitter shock pulsing in her chest. Armand parted his lips, searching for an excuse, but found none that could mask the undeniable truth. Marianne smoothed her dishevelled hair, stepping to the side with a faint roll of her eyes. As though bored by the spectacle, Bianca glared at her. The woman had the audacity to remain in her bedroom, wearing an expression that suggested she felt no shame. Rage fueled Bianca's next words. "Get out," she hissed, voice trembling with suppressed hurt. "Both of you out of this house." Armand attempted to approach, but Bianca backed away. He whispered, "Bianca, please, let's talk." His arms outstretched, as if to comfort her. She shook her head violently, tears slipping down her cheeks. The devastation of discovering him with Marianne in their sacred space seared her to the core. She'd clung to illusions for too long. Now there was no denial, no rationalizing away the betrayal. Marianne snatched her purse, muttering something about not wanting drama. She brushed past Bianca, leaving the room with an air of casual arrogance that made Bianca's stomach churn. Armand lingered, half-dressed, at a loss for words, as his wife stood trembling at the threshold of a heartbreak so profound that it would uproot everything they'd built. Bianca left the penthouse that same day, unable to remain in the space defiled by her husband's affair. She fled to her longtime friend, Cassie Scott, who welcomed her with a tearful hug. The waves of heartbreak racked Bianca's body, tears flowing in unstoppable torrents. She replayed that horrifying moment in the bedroom, questioning how she could have been so blind. Armand bombarded her phone with calls and messages, swinging between apologies and frustration. "Don't throw away our marriage over one mistake," he insisted. "Let's talk this through. I was weak, but I still love you." Each text or voicemail triggered fresh anguish. Bianca knew the trust they had was irreversibly broken. Her heart felt raw, and the betrayal ran too deep. Within days, Armand's pleas shifted to negotiation. He offered therapy, an elaborate vow to sever ties with Marianne. But the image of that embrace was scorched into Bianca's memory. She confided in Cassie, admitting she didn't see a future with a man capable of such callous deceit. Cassie encouraged her to seek legal counsel, bracing for the complexities of a high-profile divorce, especially given Armand's financial empire. That empire was all the more reason Bianca feared a vicious fight, with lawyers tearing her life apart. To her surprise, Armand seemed equally eager for a swift resolution. Perhaps he wanted to salvage his public image, keep Marianne close, or simply bury the scandal. He reached out to a reputable firm, offering an uncontested divorce if Bianca remained discreet. At first, she scoffed at his assumption she'd maintain silence. Then, exhaustion overcame her. She recognized that a dragged-out legal war might only compound her pain and hamper her ability to move forward. In a matter of weeks, through hush-hush negotiations involving lawyers from both sides, the settlement shaped. Armand parted with a generous chunk of assets, some real estate, a respectable financial cushion, a stake in minor holdings, unlike standard prenuptial terms. He seemed anxious to finalize the divorce swiftly, presumably to quell rumors of his affair. Bianca didn't fight for more than she needed. She valued freedom over further entanglement in Armand's deals. The final decree was hammered out behind closed doors. The day she signed the divorce papers, Bianca felt a numbness. The swirl of heartbreak had steadied into quiet acceptance. She glimpsed Armand across the conference table, his usually confident posture slumped, eyes red-rimmed. He looked at her with regret, but no words passed. The judge stamped the forms. It was done. Their marriage was over. She emerged from the courthouse, heart heavy yet strangely relieved. She was no longer Miss S. Fontaine. She was simply Bianca Moretti again, carrying emotional scars from discovering the man she loved entwined with someone else. Cassie squeezed her hand, whispering, "Now you can rebuild your life." She gave a shaky nod, tears brimming. She had lost illusions, but not herself. In time, she would find a path forward, forging a new identity, one that didn't revolve around Armand's shadow. Weeks after the divorce, Bianca found herself in a strange limbo. Freed from Armand's presence, she felt both liberated and hollow. She stayed with Cassie temporarily, then used part of her settlement to lease a modest yet modern apartment in a less flashy part of London. Despite her heartbreak, she forced herself to re-engage with the philanthropic events she once championed, determined to maintain her identity beyond being Armand's ex-wife. She poured energy into her traveling gallery concept, Renaissance Horizons, that aimed to spotlight emerging artists from diverse backgrounds. She began planning a pilot exhibit, forging alliances with small but respected galleries across Europe. Freed from Armand's overshadowing presence, she discovered a sharper sense of purpose. No longer was she the side piece to a millionaire's main act. She was forging her own stage. Support came from corners she never expected. Some acquaintances from her married life, once enthralled by Armand's wealth, reached out privately, congratulating her for walking away with grace. Others quietly gossiped, likely suspecting scandal behind their swift divorce. Bianca maintained politeness, refusing to clarify the details. She refused to degrade herself by fueling tabloids with details of Armand's infidelity. If asked, she'd simply mention irreconcilable differences, letting the curious fill in blanks as they wished. Her mother, living in rural southern Italy, pleaded for her to come home, but Bianca wanted to carve her own path in the city that once symbolized her ambitious future. She accepted a part-time consultancy with a non-profit foundation, stable enough to supplement her settlement funds while she established her traveling exhibit. Each day, she labored over curation, marketing, and outreach. The swirl of creative tasks offered solace from heartbreak. One afternoon, while rummaging through boxes of old memories, she found wedding photos of her and Armand, beaming by a Tuscan chapel. A pang of sorrow curled through her. She recalled how unstoppable their love had felt, but that dream was undone by betrayal. She slid the photos into a desk drawer, shutting them away physically and metaphorically. Occasionally, she caught fleeting glimpses of Armand in the media, rumored to be strolling the Riviera with Marianne. The tabloids painted them as an intriguing pair, though sources hinted that Armand's aura was subdued, overshadowed by unspoken regrets. Bianca forced herself not to dwell on it. She'd parted from that life, focusing instead on her fragile steps toward a new tomorrow. Bit by bit, she discovered a fresh sense of independence. She attended smaller, more authentic art gatherings, forging genuine friendships. She awakened each morning with renewed determination to stand on her own achievements. The heartbreak still pulsed, but she sensed healing's slow creep. A single notion propelled her: she would not remain the ex-wife overshadowed by scandal. She was Bianca Moretti, a woman forging her own dreams, absent the illusions of wealth and false devotion. And that realization lit the path forward. While Bianca forged ahead, Armand Fontaine drifted into a curious haze. Days after finalizing the divorce, he'd attempted to continue life as normal, meeting investors, dabbling in new acquisitions. Yet a nagging emptiness trailed him. He realized that without Bianca, the penthouse felt too large, too sterile. Marianne's presence, once thrilling, turned suffocating. She demanded attention, but her allure had dulled the moment Bianca walked out of his life. He tried burying regret under a lavish lifestyle, exclusive clubs, high-stakes poker matches, private jets to exotic getaways. However,